Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us for our virtual event. I'm Christina Chaladinas, and I'm a business development manager at Carta, supporting our alternative assets and private equity platform. And I will be moderating today's discussion around best practices for end-of-year tax and audit planning. I'm excited to chat with two very experienced controllers, Bryce Armbruster, controller at Rho, and Carta's very own SVP of accounting, Brian Allen, to learn how they think about internal prep and alignment during this critical time in a company's annual cycle. They'll provide some of their operational and internal best practices for managing teams, workflows, and deadlines during tax and audit season. We hope some of the tactical advice and frameworks they share from key learnings in their professional careers might help some of the questions that could be top of mind for you all during this season. Brian and Bryce also have a unique perspective, in my opinion, as not only being controllers themselves, but also working at companies that are building tools that help and benefit controllers with their day-to-day and make their teams more efficient. We'll also save some time for Q&A at the end from the audience, so get your questions ready. Brian and Bryce, thank you both so much for joining us. To kick things off, I'd love for each to introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about your role, your background, and maybe tell the audience a bit more about Rho and Carta.
Sure, I can kick off. My name is Brian Allen, as was mentioned. I've been with Carta now for about 6 years. Prior to that was with other SaaS technology companies and spent a lot of years in public accounting before that, primarily serving smaller startups in both the VC and private equity communities. Now with Carta, excited to be part of kind of a growing company. We are a company that provides cap table management software to all sorts of different companies, to firms as well, in both the venture community and the PE community. Really excited to be able to have a conversation today with Bryce and with you, Christina.
Awesome. Bryce, go ahead.
I'm Bryce, the controller at Rho. Rho is a financial automation platform that helps finance teams maximize their strategy. We sort of clean up and automate a lot of the back end stuff so you can focus on actually doing really high value add work. We offer checking accounts, corporate cards, AP automation, your treasury, help you speed up your accounting, and also help you control your spending. So similar to Brian, I've worked at startups in the past, and before that I cut my teeth in public accounting. So I've been on both sides of the audit life cycle, for better or for worse, and I'm excited to be here and hopefully share some knowledge.
Awesome. Thank you guys both. Well, let's get right into it and talk about kind of the planning and preparation for tax and audit season. Such a big piece of that is obviously the relationship that you both have with your CFOs and the other senior executives at your company. So we'd love to hear from you both. How have you built that good relationship with your CFO? How do you plan with your CFO, and how does he or she like to think about planning?
It's such a good question, and it's pertinent right now. Obviously, we're just kicking off our audit right now, and obviously we're in the middle of figuring out our tax provision and so on. And as I think about all the combination of those things that we're talking about today, in combination with this first question on how we work with the CFO, it's such a integral part of what we do. By far, the most important relationship that I have at Carta is with my direct manager, the CFO. Yeah. And he's obviously got a lot of things that he's focused on across the company. We all do, but that relationship with him is of paramount importance, just because we have to be in lockstep and be on the same page, align with one another in everything that we do. I think the most important piece, and this is, I'm going to speak a little bit broadly for a second, even beyond the CFO, like a good controller is good at communication. It doesn't matter if it's with your CFO, it doesn't matter if it's with others, but we're taught so often as we go through school, we have a lot of technical knowledge that comes through. We go through often public accounting or other means, and it's a lot of development, but what we really are developing is those communication skills. Being able to talk with cross-functionally with other business units, with other business leaders, with your board of directors, with your audit committee, with potential investors. There's a lot of folks that have to be involved in this communication for us to be able to do our jobs well. And of paramount importance, like I said, is the CFO. My CFO, his name's Charlie. He's a great person. I've been lucky that I've had the same CFO my entire time at Carta, which is, I think, pretty unusual for 6 years in kind of the tech kind of growth community. So that's been good. I learned early on that he is a very detailed individual. So he's the type, when I first started, he's more than happy to jump into some cash recon, your bank recon that I didn't know he was going to get into, and sort of dig it through and come back to me with questions. So he was quickly one that I found out that was very detailed in that way. I had to develop that relationship of trust.
Oh, might have accidentally lost Brian for a quick second there. Let's see if he comes back. If not, Bryce, I'll pass it off to you. Brian, we're still there. We're ready.
There you go. Apologies for that. Yeah, I saw the notice come up. So as I was saying, he's just a very detailed person. I had to establish that relationship of trust early on. Once he establishes that trust, now we're to the point where he very seldom gets involved in anything related to accounting. We've got a nice rapport where I am more than happy to bring up things to him. I sort of have kind of a running like heads up sort of things that I bring up to him on a regular basis that we go through. And that way he feels like he's in the know of what's going on without having to jump into details. He's also a person, and I found a lot of CFOs are this way, that likes to be taken for the journey and not just talk to it at the destination. And so we've had this in the past. I had some early experiences with him where we talked towards the end of a process and said, hey, here's the results of this project we've been working on. It wasn't helpful for him to not understand the context as we went along. But he's very much a person that likes to be taken along for the journey rather than just meet there at the destination. And I think that's helped establish that relationship of trust.
And obviously after 6 years, I can imagine that's a very strong relationship these days.
I would hope so. I mean, you'd have to ask him.
I think that's interesting. I look at the audit and to some extent tax, like those are they are obviously like, they're sort of like the stamp of this is sort of your books are what they are for the year. They're accurate, they're representative, but it's also a huge project management piece. And so if you talk about like earning the trust of your CFO. I think if you can, it's also probably the largest opportunity in the year to sort of say like, hey, I've got this under control. Everything I've done over the course of the year has been validated. And then you don't have to worry about this process, and you can sort of pick and choose your level of involvement. And different CFOs, like you said, are going to have, some are going to be really involved, and others might just honestly, like you said, want to be presented to at the end and be like, okay, like I was maybe a part of a kickoff meeting. You're going to give me an update. I don't even feel like I need to meet with the partner. And then maybe they're like in the closure meeting, sort of before the board report is issued. So I think everybody has their different working styles. It's great that if you can sort of steer them in a direction that you want, it's sort of like some upward management. If you have a CFO who's coming in and you can sort of demonstrate, hey, I've got this project plan. I personally like to be the point person that works with the partner directly. Some people might have different views on what their CFO wants, but if you can sort of lay out your plan in advance, sort of set the expectations for your CFO and for the audit team and tax team, then I think you can steer what you want. You're more likely to get the sort of relationship with the CFO and then the sort of audit and project management that you want if you're more proactive about it. That sounds maybe obvious in person, or it might seem obvious sort of on the face of it, but it is really important to make sure you have like a clear plan and it's agreed on with the partner. Because Brian, you mentioned the CFO wants to be taken for the journey. I think that's true with everybody. I think that's true with all humans. And so you can't just be like, okay, this is the kickoff meeting and then there's the ending. You have to give them drip, some level of information, like drip feed them some information over the course of the audit, like let them know about big issues that may or may not be coming up. I had a boss once who sort of thrived in getting, he liked not having to be involved in the audit, but then when it was time, like push comes to shove, he liked sort of like be able to dig in and sort of grit his teeth and kind of negotiate heavily with the auditors if there was ever an issue. So he sort of enjoyed that there could be like tough conversations to have. And it was something that like really engaged him and he was great at. So I think upward management and utilizing your CFO is also as sort of like a tool in the audit is also really, really helpful. And obviously this all goes for tax as well. But I think maybe I have a few less horror stories with tax because just sort of like the legal, more black and white nature of it sometimes.
I think that's a great point, Bryce. To be strategic about how you work with your CFO, especially in audit and tax planning or these wider partners, can be a really valuable piece of how you work with them. There's times when you're going to have, you're not contention, but like you're going to have to discuss, agreements or discuss ways to kind of get to a mutual understanding on things. Having sort of a way to escalate is sometimes helpful. So we all, any negotiation you're in, and this is true across a lot of different things, having that tool in your tool belt of ways to utilize your CFO, and then having that person informed on how to utilize your CFO is really helpful.